So we'll have a question on this part now. What it says that, what we had seen, the unrealized rent is allowed as a deduction. But do remember, if the actual rent receivable for per annum has been given, then only unrealized rent would be reduced. अगर दिया हुआ ही actual rent received है, then unrealized rent won't be reduced from it. So in this question, what has been given? The municipal value, the fair rent, the standard rent, all these figures are annual. We won't be taking for the part of the year. कब part of the year लिया जाता है? Only if he is the owner for the part of the year or the property is not ready for the full year. In only the two scenario, we take it out the fair and municipal value for the part of the year. For all the cases, we take it out this figure as a full year. So the municipal value and the fair rent and the standard rent has been given. Next, actual rent receivable per annum has been given. And the last one in that is unrealized rent for the previous year 1920 in the terms of a month had been given. For how many months the owner had not received the rent. That is this. We to calculate the unrealized rent. यहाँ पे how much would be the unrealized rent? The 120 divided by 12 multiply by 2. You will get the unrealized rent. It is a rent for a year, that is a 120. Divide by 12 करेंगे तो you will get the rent for 1 month. And the 2 months rent you had not received. So multiply by 2. So you will get the unrealized rent. So how much is the unrealized rent? For the house one, it is a 20. Same thing you should repeat for the house 2. How to calculate the unrealized rent? 600 divided by 12 multiply by 3. You will get unrealized rent. Next, it is a 12 multiply by 1. Correct? It is a 12 multiply by 3. Over here 12 multiply by 2. What you will get out of this? Unrealized rent amount. So first case is a 20. Second case is a 150. Third case it is a 15. Fourth case is a 90. And fifth house case it is a 25. So what is this figure is? This is a unrealized rent. What is this? This is unrealized rent. The unrealized rent is allowed to be reduced from the actual rent received or actual rent receivable for the per annum. Correct? So 120 minus 20, assuming the three condition had been satisfied. So actual rent received कितना हो जाएगा? 100. In this case it become a 450. Correct? In this case it would be 165. In this case it would be 270. In this case it is a 125. 150 minus 25. 360 minus 90. 180 minus 50. Like that. Have you clear? So this is what? This is a actual rent receivable for a year minus unrealized rent. Why this is calculated? Because this step would be used, this figure would be useful in step 3 calculation. So I need to calculate the GAO. So what is the first step? The step 1 says that your municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So the step 1 answer would be how much? It would be 300. The step 1 answer is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. Correct? How much is the standard rent? 50. Correct? The step 2 answer would be 50. And that is to be compared with actual rent received or receivable minus unrealized rent. Correct? So that figures 100. So this is a RDR, reasonable expected rent. कितना हो गया? 50. This is step 2 answer. This is a step 1 answer. And the step 3 answer would be how much? Higher of the two. This is to be compared with this higher of the two. Have you got it? So the higher of the two means the GA would become equal to 100. Have you clear? In the first step, the first house, the GA is 100. In house 2, the municipal value will be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So the step 1 answer would be how much? 500. That is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. So the answer of the second step would come to 500. And this is to be compared with actual rent received or receivable. Receivable minus the unrealized rent. Correct? So that comes to, sorry, very sorry, 450 and 500. So it comes to, the GAV comes to 500, whichever is higher. Next, house 3. The municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So step 1 answer would be 300. That is to be compared with the, yes, standard rent, whichever is lower. So step 2 answer is a 240, reasonable expected. And this is to be compared with what? Actual rent receivable minus unrealized rent. That comes to 165, whichever is higher. So the GAV would become a 240. Have you clear with this? In the next case, the fair rent is to be compared with the municipal value, whichever is a higher. So answer is a 300. That is to be compared with the 250. That is the standard rent, whichever is lower. Next, that is to be compared with what? That is to be compared with 250, whichever is lower, so the 250. And the step 1 answer is 300. Step 2 answer, reasonable expected, is a 250. And that is to be compared with the actual rent minus the unrealized, whichever is higher. Correct? So it comes to 270. Are we clear with it? Next, last one. It comes to 315 or 300, whichever is higher. So it 315. That is to be compared with the standard rent of the 500, whichever is lower. So 315. That is to be compared with the 125, whichever is higher. So the GAV would become a 315. In the last case, the GAV is 315. In the higher, lower, and again higher. Have you clear how to treat out with the unrealized rent? Unrealized rent, very simple. It should be reduced from actual rent receivable. But actual rent receivable should be in a per annum figure. उसमें से आप unrealized minus कर दो. Have you clear with it? अगर वो received रहेगा तो उसमें से unrealized minus करने की जरूरत नहीं. With that, we're done with this. Next one. Next one is this is what we've done, the treatment of unrealized rent. Abhi that how to treat out the vacancy loss. What is mean by vacancy loss? The property was vacant, you are not able to let it out. For an example, out of the 12 months, only the 10 month you had let out a property. The 2 month is not unrealized rent. 2 month the property was vacant. So 2 month is called as a vacancy loss. How to treat out with the vacancy loss? What is the treatment to be done? So the first, you do not know that what is a GAV, gross annual value क्या होता है step 3 में? It says that whoever is a higher, in one hand I do have my reasonable expected rent, and in another hand what I do have the actual rent receivable. Whichever is higher, that would become a GAV. So there is a fight between these two, who would become a GAV. So it's very simple answer. Whoever is a higher would become a GAV. But what had happened? The reasonable expected rent is higher than the actual rent. So there is no question. That should become a GAV. Reasonable expected rent should become a GAV. But reasonable expected income is rent is a notional income. वो गाँव बन रहा है मतलब नोशनल चीज टैक्स हो रही है. करेक्ट. सो इट सेज दैट इफ इट इज इन हायर ड्यू टू द वैकेंसी लॉस. ये एक्चुअल रेंट बोल रहा है अगर वैकेंसी नहीं होता तो आई वुड बी इक्वल और हायर देन यू. हैव यू गॉट इट? आई विल रिपीट इट आउट. How to treat out the vacancy loss in the calculation of a GAV. What is mean by vacancy loss? The period for which the property is vacant, not let out, is to be called as a vacancy loss. You do know that basic funda. The GAV, how to calculate the GAV in the step 3? If this is my reasonable expected rent, and what is this? This is my this is the actual rent. Correct. So this is my reasonable expected rent and this is my actual rent. So what would become a GAV? Yeah, you do know that. Whoever is a higher would become a गाँव. तब दोनों का टफ है, दोनों का फाइट है. Who would become a higher would become a गाँव. What had happened? The reasonable expected rent is a higher. Okay, तो क्या होगा? He would become a गाँव. But that is a notional income get taxable. Actual rent तो कम है. मेरा actual income क्या है? Lower side है. Still what did it get taxable? Yeah, the reasonable expected rent. ये actual rent उठ के बोलता है अगर वैकेंसी लॉस नहीं होता, मतलब प्रॉपर्टी अगर वैकेंट नहीं होती तो आई वुड बी इक्वल टू यू और आई वुड बी हायर देन यू. ये तो वैकेंसी लॉस था. दैट द रीजन आई एम लोअर एंड यू आर द हायर. इफ आई डू एड द वैकेंसी लॉस आई वुड बी इक्वल टू यू और आई वुड बी हायर देन यू. मीन्स ड्यू टू द वैकेंसी लॉस आई एम द लोअर. So in this case, if you do satisfy this, then the actual rent would become a गाँव even if it is a lower than the reasonable expected rent. What it says that? Yes. अगर if ARR is less than the reasonable expected rent, अगर ये ऊपर है तो झगड़े का काम ही खत्म. करेक्ट. एक्चुअल रेंट ज्यादा है, there is no question. नहीं, reasonable expected rent is higher than the actual rent, then what would happen? In such cases, AR plus vacancy, ये AR है, इसमें vacancy add किया, if it become equivalent with or higher than the reasonable expected rent, it's equivalent or higher. क्या higher हो रहा है? Yes, ARR higher हो रहा है. Then the ARR should become a गाँव. So in the simple words, what it says that the generally this is in a general rule. What is the general rule? General rule says that whoever is a higher should become a गाँव. Correct. But the ARR come with the fight. I am a lower. Agreed. What is the reason? But vacancy loss. If the vacancy loss is not there, I would be a higher. Means what? The AR plus vacancy loss. Vacancy loss को add करो तो मैं एक तो हायर होता या फिर इक्वल होता. AR प्लस वैकेंसी लॉस किया तो इट बी हायर और इक्वल टू द RER. सो इन ऑल सच केसेस व्हाट वुड बिकम अ गाँव? द ARR, एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल और रिसीव्ड वुड बिकम अ गाँव, नॉट द RER. RER ज्यादा हो के भी गाँव क्या बन रहा है? एक्चुअल रेंट लोअर वाला. क्यों? क्योंकि ये तो अरे टाइम बीइंग है, वैकेंसी लॉस था इसलिए, नहीं तो मैं ही ज्यादा होता. हैव यू गॉट इट? इफ द AER प्लस वैकेंसी लॉस इज हायर देन AAR, that is actual rent receivable, is higher than the RER. Correct? In that case, the गाँव would become a AR. Are you clear with this? We'll have an example so we have a more clear idea on this part. So, what had happened? The gross municipal value had been given to you. The fair rent per annum. Do remember, vacancy loss है, तो municipal value, fair rent, standard rent part of the year के लिए लेना है? No, it is to be taken for the full year. When it is to be taken for the part of the year, if you are owner for the part of the year, or the property was not ready for the full year, the property was there only for the part of the year. Correct? In that two scenario only you should take it as part of the year. In all other scenario, these figures are always annual. So the municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. We do know that that is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower, and that is to be compared with the actual rent, whichever is higher. Agreed. So पहले हम step 2, step 2 and step 3. करेक्ट. वैकेंसी लॉस निकाल के रख देंगे क्योंकि वैकेंसी लॉस को विल डू एड इट आउट इनटू द AR एंड चेक इट आउट कि वैकेंसी लॉस की वजह से तो AR कम नहीं है. अगर वैकेंसी लॉस की वजह से इफ AR इज अ लोअर साइड देन व्हाट वुड बिकम अ गाँव? द एक्चुअल रेंट वुड बिकम अ गाँव. सो चलो विल डू द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, द इलस्ट्रेशन 4, सॉरी. So what is the step 1 says that the municipal value is to be compared with what? The municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. Correct? So in this case, what is that? Step 1 answer would be 300. Step 2, that is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. Correct? The third one is to be compared with the actual rent पर एनम, पूरे साल भर का रेंट कितना है 600 है. मेरे को एक्चुअल रेंट वोंट बी टैक्सेबल, एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल इज टू बी टैक्सेबल अंडर द एचपी. स्टेप 3 में क्या चाहिए मेरे को, एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल. तो इन दिस केस मेरे को कितने मंथ्स का रेंट मिलेगा, आई विल गेट द रेंट ओनली फॉर द 11 months because the property was vacant for the 1 month. So I cannot compare the actual rent per annum. I need to calculate actual rent receivable kitna hai. How to calculate that? Is 600 divided by 12 multiply by 11. So how much is the actual rent receivable? Yes, it would comes to actual rent receivable is a 550. That is rent for the period for which we had actually let out the property. So आपको कितना receivable होना चाहिए था 550. That is to be compared with the step 2. करेक्ट ना. ये रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट कितना है 300. 300 और 550 में फाइट है कि कौन गांव बनेगा, जो हायर है वो गांव बनेगा. तो यहाँ कौन हायर है, ए आर. एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल इज अ हायर, सो द गांव वुड बिकम अ 550. वो वैकेंसी लॉस ऐड करने की जरूरत है क्या, नहीं. वो कब, जब एक्चुअल रेंट कम होगा तब वो झगड़ने को आएगा. व्हेन ही इज हायर देयर इज नो क्वेश्चन ऑफ अ फाइट, दैट विल बिकम अ गांव. आरईआर अगर ज्यादा हो जाता है तो एआर आएगा और बोलेगा आई एम लोअर बट ड्यू टू द वैकेंसी लॉस. हैव यू क्लियर? सो इन दिस क्वेश्चन जो हमने अभी पढ़ा था दैट इज नॉट यूजफुल, दैट वुड बी यूजफुल इन द नेक्स्ट एग्जांपल. हैव यू क्लियर विद इट? नेक्स्ट, the gross municipal value, and the step 3 answer is nothing but your gaon. The house number 2, the municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So the step 1 answer would be 600. The step 2, that is to be compared with the standard rent, so it comes to 180, whichever is lower. Step 3, it is to be compared with what? It is to be compared with actual rent receivable. तो actual rent receivable निकालना पड़ेगा. ये 900 divided by 12 मल्टीप्लाई बाय 9. क्यों 9? बिकॉज 12 मंथ में से 3 months प्रॉपर्टी वॉज नॉट लेट आउट, सो इट बी रिसीविंग रेंट ओनली फॉर द 9 months. सो ये पूरे साल भर का रेंट डिवाइड बाय 12 मल्टीप्लाई बाय 9, देन आई विल गेट एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल फॉर द ईयर. सो हाउ मच विल बी द एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल? दैट कम्स टू 675. So 675 is to be compared with the reasonable expected rent, whichever is higher. Correct? So it's very simple. Again, क्या ज्यादा है? एक्चुअल रेंट ऊपर है ना. जब एक्चुअल रेंट ऊपर है तो वैकेंसी लॉस ऐड करके देखने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. हैव यू गॉट इट? नेक्स्ट, थर्ड हाउस. सो इन दिस केस वॉट एवर विच एवर इज हायर, तो स्टेप 1 आंसर वुड बी 750. करेक्ट. स्टेप 2 आंसर विच एवर इज लोअर, तो 280 is to be compared with the 750. So the answer would be 280. Now that is to be compared with the actual rent receivable. Actual rent receivable कितना आएगा? 300 divided by 12 multiply by 10, because the property is let out only for the 10 months. So how much is the rent for the 10 months? Actual rent receivable is a 250. अब इन दोनों में whichever is higher would become a गांव. अब एक्चुअल रेंट कितना है? हाउ मच इज द एक्चुअल रेंट? द एक्चुअल रेंट इज 250. करेक्ट. एंड द आरईआर कितना है? 280. हैव यू गॉट इट? तो अभी क्या हो रहा है, दोनों में फाइट चालू हो गया. ये बोलता है नहीं आई एम लोअर बट ड्यू टू द वैकेंसी लॉस. अच्छा, ये बोलते चलो वैकेंसी लॉस ऐड कर दो. अगर वैकेंसी लॉस ऐड करूंगी तो कितना आएगा? 2 महीने का वैकेंसी लॉस, ये 10 महीने का रेंटल है, 2 महीने का रेंटल ऐड करूंगी तो वैकेंसी लॉस के बाद रेंट कितना आएगा? 300. करेक्ट ना. सो द 300 इज टू बी कंपेयर विद द 280. तो एक्चुअल रेंट प्लस वैकेंसी लॉस कितना आता था? इट वुड कम एट 280. सो व्हाट शुड बिकम अ गांव? एक्चुअल रेंट कितना? 300. 300? नो, 300 इज अ actual rent for an year. I am talking about actual rent receivable. How much is the actual rent receivable? 250. Correct. So 250 plus vacancy loss. Vacancy loss कितने का था? 50. Correct. So कितना हुआ? 300. That is more than reasonable expected rent. कितना है आपका? 280. Correct. So what would become a गांव? Actual rent receivable or received. So यहाँ पे actual rent receivable और received कितना है? 250. So that become a गांव. मीन्स आफ्टर एडिंग द वैकेंसी लॉस अगर एक्चुअल रेंट इक्वल टू हो जाता है या उससे ज्यादा हो जाता है, किससे ज्यादा? रीजनेबल से. हैव यू गॉट इट? इन दैट केस व्हाट इज टू बी टैक्सेबल? एक्चुअल रेंट इज टू बी टैक्सेबल. वो कम है फिर भी वही गांव बनेगा. हाउस 4 द म्युनिसिपल वैल्यू इज टू बी कंपेयर विद the municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So step 1 answer would be 500. Step 2 it is to be compared with the standard rent, so whichever is lower 225. Actual rent receivable निकालना होगा आपको. How much is actual rent receivable or received? Oh sorry. Step 1 answer is 500. Step 2 answer is 225. Actual rent receivable कैसे निकालेंगे? 240 divided by 12 multiply by 11. So how much is the answer? Yes, 220. 220 or 225, whichever is higher would become a गांव. करेक्ट. तो क्या ज्यादा है? रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट ज्यादा है. लेकिन ये रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट को क्या बोलेगा? अगर वैकेंसी लॉस ऐड किया होता तो क्या होता? वैकेंसी लॉस इसका भी कम है. क्या कम है? द एक्चुअल रेंट इज लोअर. करेक्ट. एंड द एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट इज रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट हायर है. लेकिन अगर वैकेंसी लॉस ऐड किया तो क्या होगा? ऊपर जाएगा ना, 240 हो जाएगा. करेक्ट. सो इफ आई डू ऐड द वैकेंसी लॉस it would be higher. If you are not clear, do it manually. So 225 plus vacancy loss. 220 plus the vacancy. This is the actual rent receivable. और वैकेंसी लॉस कितना आपका? 1 महीने का वैकेंसी लॉस है. तो 1 महीने का वैकेंसी लॉस मतलब 20 रुपए ऐड कर दो तो कितना हो जाता है? 240. दैट इज हायर देन द रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट. रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट कितना है? 225. Have you got it? Means your actual rent plus the vacancy loss is higher than the reasonable expected rent. आपका reasonable expected rent is 225. Correct? उससे ज्यादा है. मतलब वैकेंसी नहीं होता then the AR would be higher than you. अगर पूरे साल के लिए let out होता ना तो AR ही higher होता. तो in this case the AR would be considered as an गांव. This is an exception. जनरल रूल हायर. लेकिन हायर होने का रीजन क्या है? ये रीजनेबल ज्यादा क्यों? रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट ज्यादा क्यों है? हाँ, ये वैकेंसी है इसलिए. अगर वैकेंसी को ऐड करो तो मैं तेरे से ऊपर हूं बाबा. तो क्या टैक्सेबल होगा? एक्चुअल रेंट, नॉट द रीजनेबल. हैव यू क्लियर विद इट? नेक्स्ट, नाउ विल कैलकुलेट फॉर द हाउस 5 द एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल. In the case of house 5, the property has been vacant for the 2 months, correct? So 216 divided by 12 multiply by 10, you will get actual rent receivable for a period for which you are let out the property, correct? So 216 divided by 12 multiply by 10 come out to 180. That is actual rent receivable. So the vacancy loss is how much? The vacancy loss become a 36. Now we'll go by step 1, step 2 and step 3. What is the step 1 says that the gross municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is a higher. So the step 1 answer would be 300. Next, the step 1 answer is to be compared with standard rent, whichever is lower. Correct. So step 2 answer would become a 250. Now the step 3, it says that this is nothing but the RER. The reasonable expected rent is to be compared with the actual rent receivable. Correct. So whichever is a higher. Now look it out. Again, what is a higher over here? Correct. The reasonable expected rent is a higher 250 and the AR is a 180. So who would become a gav? Whoever is a higher would become a gav. That is a general rule. Correct. Now AR will come and fight. There is due to the vacancy I am the lower. If there would be no vacancy, I would be higher than you. Correct. Or equal to you. So just check it out then. Vacancy nahi hoti to kya hota? If there is no vacancy, then what would have been happened? the rent that you will be receiving would be 216, correct? तो भी AR would be less than the, अगर वैकेंसी नहीं भी होती तभी भी RER कितना है 250 और AR कितना होता 216, करेक्ट? मतलब still the AR would be on a lower side, so it won't fit into the exception. So the general rule is applicable. And what is general rule? Whoever is a higher, that would become a GAO. So step 1 and step 3 answer would be 250. The house 5 does not fit into the exception, so the general rule is applicable, and general rule say whichever is a higher would become a GAO. Clear with it? Next, house 6. First we'll calculate the actual rent receivable. The property is let out for the, vacant for 1 month. So I will calculate the rent for the 11th month. So 240 divided by 12 multiply by 11. I will get the rent for the actual rent receivable for the let out period. So actual rent receivable for the let out period comes to 220. Now step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1 says that the municipal value of the fair rent whichever is higher. So the answer of the step 1 would be 400. That is to be compared with what? That is to be compared with the standard rate whichever is lower. So step 2 answer would become a 240. Now this 240 is to be compared with the actual rent receivable, that is a 220, correct? So in दोनों में से whichever is a higher would become a GAO. How much is your RER? It is a 240. How much is AR? 220. What is the general rule? Whichever is higher would become a GAO. But the AR come, it says that due to the vacancy I am lower. Okay, अगर vacancy नहीं होता तो it would be equal or more than you. Just check it out. अगर vacancy नहीं होता, vacancy loss add back करो 20 rupees का, करेक्ट? तो कितना होता? AR 240 होता, करेक्ट? So it would be equal to the RER. Hence what would become a GAO? Yes, the AR would become a GAO. And how much is the AR? 220. That would become a GAO. What is an exception? Exception says that AR plus vacancy loss. AR plus vacancy loss, if it is equivalent or more than the RER, then what would become a GAO? AR would become a GAO. So in this case, it is equivalent with the RER. What is equivalent? AR plus vacancy loss is equivalent with the RER. So AR would become a GAO. Are you clear with this example? Next. Next illustration. Again that asks you to calculate the gross annual value of the property. So there are two properties, house 1 and house 2. One is situated at Chandigarh and दूसरी is at Amritsar. The municipal value, fair rent and the standard rent has been given. Actual rent, how the actual rent has been given? It had been given from the 1st April to the 31st of July, the rent is this much, and from the 1st October to February, the rent is this much. What about the remaining period? Remaining period, the property would be vacant. So for how many months the property is vacant? It was let out up to the July. So August, September. Again from the 1st October it has been let out, correct? But it is let out only up to the February. Means it is not let out in the month of March. So property is vacant in nutshell for the 3 months, correct? So we do calculate the vacancy loss for the 3 months. Before that we'll calculate the actual rent receivable. How much is the actual rent receivable would be? The property is let out with the rent of 5,000 from the April to July. So April, May, so it comes to the April, May, June, correct? And the July, 4 months, correct? And then October. So October, November, December, January, February. So the 5 months. So what is the rent receivable for this period? It would be 65,000, correct? So the rent that would be receivable for this period comes to the 65,000. Next, vacancy loss. How much is the vacancy loss in this case? How to calculate the vacancy loss? The property was vacant for the 3 months, correct? So now the rent has been changed in between, so I will take out the average rent. How to calculate the average rent? 65,000 is the rent for the 9 months. So how much is the rent? So how I will calculate 65,000 divided by 9 multiply by 3. I will get the vacancy loss figure. So how much is the vacancy loss figure? Yes, it is 21,667. 21,667 is a figure of the vacancy loss. Are you clear with it? Chalo, now the step 1, step 2 and the step 3. Step 1 says that the municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So it comes to 70,000. Next, the answer of the step 1 is to be compared with what? Yes, standard rent, whichever is a lower. How much is the standard rent? 80,000. So step 2 answer would become a 70,000. Now this is to be compared with the actual rent receivable. How much is the actual rent receivable? It's 65,000. Correct, it is to be compared with the 65,000. Again, RER is a higher, actual rent receivable is 65,000. So again, actual rent receivable is a lower. So who would become a cow? What is the general rule? Whoever is a higher would become a cow. But this is a AR, say AR come for the fight. Due to the vacancy I am lower. Okay, add back the vacancy. अगर vacancy add किया होता तो कितना आता? 86,667. Yeah, he is correct. अगर vacancy add किया तो he is more than the RER. Correct. So in such situation, what would become a AR? It fits into the exception. And what would become a GAO? AR would become a GAO. So how much is your AR? 65,000 would become a GAO. Are you clear with it? Next, for the house 2, how much is the rent receivable? 6,000 for the 4 month and 8,500 for the 5 month. So the total rent receivable would be 66,500. How much is the vacancy loss? 66,500 divided by 9 multiply by 3. You will get the vacancy loss figure. Correct. Now, what had happened? Step 1 answer. The municipal value is to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher. So the answer of the step 1 comes to 70,000. The answer of the step 2, it is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. So it is a 50,000. And the reasonable expected rent kitna ho gaya aapka? Reasonable expected rent is 50,000, and that is to be compared with the actual rent receivable, and that is comes to 66,500. So whichever is higher would become a GAO. कब दोनों में fight होती है? When there is a fight between the both of them. When there is a fight between both of them. कब AR झगड़ने को आता? जब AR lower है. यहाँ पे already the AR is on a higher side. There is no need of fight. Your actual rent would become a GAO. Are you clear with it? So how much is in a GAO? 66,500. Try to understand. 6,000 has been let out for a period of a 4 month, and the 8,500 is let out for the with the rent of 8,500 is let out for the 5 months. So the total rent receivable become a 66,500. Next, I need to calculate the vacancy loss. But step 1 answer is 70,000. Step 2 answer is a 50,000. Correct. As the actual rent receivable is higher than the reasonable expected rent, vacancy loss add करके देखने की no need. Correct. Directly the actual rent would become a GAO. No need to add back the vacancy loss. Are you clear with it? The next. Now again the question is to find out the gross annual value. There are 3 houses. What are the information and given? Gross municipal value, the fair rent, the standard rent, actual rent if the property is let out throughout the year. means पूरे 12 महीने let out होती तो what will be the rent? Unrealized rent for the previous year 90-20. Correct. We are calculating income for the 90-20. So this is a unrealized rent of the current year. Next, unrealized rent of the year prior to the previous year in 1890. But that would be relevant? No. Only the unrealized rent of the current year would be allowed as deduction from the actual rent receivable, and provided you had satisfied the 3 conditions. So assume the 3 conditions has been satisfied. So unrealized rent of the current year would be deductible, not the unrealized rent of the past years. Next, period when the property remain vacant. It's a 3 month and 1 month. And in the house, no, it has not been vacant at all. So first is we need to calculate the actual rent receivable. How to calculate the actual rent receivable? This is a rent if the property is let out throughout the year. Correct. Property is let vacant for the 3 months over here. So actual rent receivable कैसे निकालेंगे? 180 divided by 12 multiply by 9, you will get actual rent receivable for the period for which the property has been let out, minus unrealized rent of the 25, correct? Then you will get actual rent received, for the house property 1. So do the calculation. So 180 divided by 12, correct, multiply by 9 minus the 25. So how much is the answer? Correct, 110. This is actual rent receivable for the house 1. Same will continue for the house 2. Actual rent receivable. How to calculate the actual rent receivable? Over here there is an actual rent if the property is let out for the throughout the year is a 300. So 300 divided by 12, correct, multiply by the property is let out for how many period? The property has been let out for the 11 months. The property was vacant for the 1 month. So I will get the rent of the 11 month. Minus there is an unrealized rent also of the current year. Previous year का तो deduct नहीं होगा, but current year का minus होगा. So minus 40. So you get an answer of 235. Next, in the third case, there is no vacancy loss, but there is unrealized rent. So annual rent minus 150 minus 20. So it comes to 130. That is actual rent receivable. Now we'll go one by one, step 1, step 2, step 3. And we do also calculate the vacancy loss. How much is the vacancy loss for the house 1? So it will be easy for us in the calculation. How much is the vacancy loss for the house property 1? Yeah. 180 divided by, how to calculate it? 180 divided by 12 multiply by 3. So you will get the vacancy loss for the house 1. So how much is the vacancy loss for the house 1? Yeah, correct. It is a 45. 45 is a vacancy loss for the house 1. For the house 2, how much is the vacancy loss? 25. For house 3, there is no vacancy loss at all. Correct. Why we need to calculate the vacancy loss? In the step 3, you may need a vacancy loss. The step 1, what is the step 1? The fair rent is to be compared with the municipal value, whichever is a higher. The answer of the step 1 is 150. That is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. So the answer of the step 2 comes to 120. This is to be compared with the actual rent receivable. This is nothing but your RER, reasonable expected rent. This reasonable expected rent is to be compared with the actual rent. How much is the reasonable expected rent? 120. How much is the actual rent? The actual rent is 110. Correct. So now, अगर actual rent lower है, तो कौन गाँव बनेगा? General rule is whoever is a higher would become a गाँव. Correct. But now what had happened? AR is a lower, but AR will come and fight. I am lower, agreed 100%. But why I am lower? Because of vacancy. If there is no vacancy, I would be higher than you. Okay, really? Check it out. Add back the vacancy. So 110 plus vacancy loss कितने का है? 45. तो actual rent कितना होता? अगर there is no vacancy, if there is a no vacancy, then actual rent कितना आता था? 155. So that is more than your RER. Correct. So in this case, what would become a gav? The AR. How much is an AR? That is 110 would become a gav. Are you clear with it? Because actual rent plus vacancy loss is higher than your RER. Next, house 2. What is for the house 2 now? Step 1 answer, whichever is a higher, it comes to 180. That is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. Correct. Now, this both is to be compared. Reasonable expected rent 240 है. AR क्या है? Again it is a 235. तो ये क्या बोलता है? I am lower agreed. But क्यों lower हो? Vacancy की वजह से. अगर vacancy नहीं होती तो अच्छा ऐड करके देख लो. करेक्ट. अगर vacancy नहीं होती तो क्या होता? 240 plus 50. तो it would be, sorry, actual rent कितना है? 235 plus 50. So it would have been 285. 285 होता ना, मतलब RER से ज़्यादा होता मैं. Vacancy की वजह से कम हो. अगर vacancy नहीं होती तो I would be higher than you. So again in this case, what would become a gav? The actual rent would become a gav, and that comes to 235. Are you clear with it? So in the second house, the 235 would become a gav. The house is very simple. That is a homework. Ex-own in a house property in Pune, details relating to which are as follow. The municipal value is a 2 lakh per annum. The fair rent is a 1,80,000 per annum. The standard rent is rupees 2,10,000 per annum. It is let out for the throughout the previous year. 10,000 per month rent up to 15th of October. Okay. After that, it has been changed to 12,000 per month. Matlab, in between of the period, the rent has been changed. Okay. The property is transferred by the X to the Y in the Feb 29th. Okay. Means the X is the owner only for the 11 months. Out of that 11 month also, there is a change in the rent. The Y failed to recover the rent of the month of the March. X has transferred the property to the Y and the Y has let out it. Correct, but Y is not able to recover the rent. Means it's become unrealized rent. Yeah, correct. Find out the gross annual property in the hands of X and Y. How much is the GAO in the hands of X and Y? First of all, X is the owner for 11 months and the Y is the owner for 1 month. So the fair rent municipal value, if you do remember, I told you that when you are the owner for the part of the year, the fair rent, standard rent, municipal value, all the figures should be taken for the part of the year. Correct? Actual rent का तो सवाल ही नहीं आता. So in this case, first we need to calculate the fair rent, municipal value and standard rent for the part of the year because the figures had been given for an annual. So first do calculate for the part of the year. So the fair rent for the part of the year कैसे निकालेंगे? It's very simple. You have an annual figure of the fair rent 1,80,000. So divide by 12, multiply by 11. So it comes to 1,65,000. Correct. And the for Y is the owner only for the 1 month. So the fair rent is to be taken only for the 1 month. Next, the municipal value. The municipal value is to be taken for the 11 months for the X. 183,333 it comes to, and over here it comes to 16,667. कहाँ है municipal value? It's a 2 lakh. Divide by 12, multiply by 11. Next, standard rent को भी हम 11 months के लिए कर लेते हैं पहले. Standard rent 2,10,000 divide by 12 multiply by 11. Correct. कब part of the year के लिए करना होता है? If the property is there in existence for the part of the year or you are the owner for the part of the year, then only you should do the proportionate calculation or you do calculate the fair rent, standard rent and municipal value for the part of the year. Otherwise, you always to be taken as the annual value. So next, how much would be the standard rent? It comes to 1,92,500. Over here it comes to 17,500. The standard rent has been given 2,10,000 divided by 12 multiply by 11 multiply by 1. Next, how to calculate this? अभी यह vacancy loss है क्या? नहीं, there is no vacancy loss. Only unrealized rent is there. और वो भी किसके केस में? Y के केस में. X के केस में there is no unrealized rent. तो बहुत ही सिंपल है. करेक्ट. सिर्फ आपको क्या कैलकुलेट करना है? अभी एक्चुअल रेंट बचा है कैलकुलेट करने का. एक्चुअल रेंट. हाउ टू कैलकुलेट द एक्चुअल रेंट? 10,000 up to the 15th of October. Correct. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Correct. So 6.5 months के लिए the rent was 10,000. Correct. After that the rent has been changed to 12,000. Correct. So October half, November, December, January, February. February में here transfer the property to the Y. Correct. So 4.5 months. Correct. So for the 4.5 month the rent is 12,000. So you will get the actual rent. इसके X के case में there is no unrealized rent. Correct. In the Y case there is unrealized rent, but for the X there is no unrealized rent. So how much will become actual rent? It comes to 1,19,000. Correct? Yes. Next, what is the actual rent for the Y? Actually 12,000. But unrealized कितना है? पूरा का पूरा unrealized है ना? तो 12,000. तो actual rent कितना हो जाएगा? Nil. Have you got it? So calculate the gross annual value. We do have a step 1, step 2, step 3. So step 1, higher of the two, it comes to 1,83,000. Correct. और यहाँ पे 16,000. इन दोनों में का whichever is lower. So again it comes to 1,83,333. That is to be compared with this whichever is higher. 183,33. Actual rent कम है और reasonable expected higher है. Correct. Vacancy loss है क्या? नहीं. वैकेंसी लॉस ने तो कुछ करने की जरूरत ही नहीं. इफ देयर इज अ वैकेंसी लॉस तो आई वुड हैव बीन एडेड, बट देयर इज नो वैकेंसी लॉस. तो आपका गांव कितना हो जाएगा 1,83,333. और इन दिस केस इट्स 17,500. द रीजनेबल एक्सपेक्टेड रेंट कितना हो जाएगा 16,667. दैट इज टू बी कंपेयर विद द नील. सो द गांव इज अ 66167 because the third step whichever is a higher. reasonable expected rent है 16,000 and actual rent is actually rent receivable is 12,000 but unrealized rent minus करने के बाद nil. So higher of the two would become a gav, that is nothing but the 16,000. Have you clear with this? So this is a gav to be taxable in the hands of both. In this question there was no vacancy loss, but there is a calculation of the fair and standard and municipal values to be taken for the part of the year. Okay, and unrealized rent was there. Hopefully clear with this. Next, again in this question, what already done with this, I think. Yeah, we're done with this. It has been repeated, sorry. Next, what is in this question? Illustration 8. Just look it out carefully. Municipal value had been given. Rent for the similar property in this location means this is nothing but the fair rent. Correct? Next one, what is given? Rent determined under the Rent Control Act. That is nothing but the standard rent. So this is your municipal value. This is your fair rent. Word may change, but it's actually nothing but the, and this is your standard rent. Rent Control Act is nothing but the standard rent. Correct? Same locality is nothing but the fair rent, and that is nothing but the municipal value. Actual rent receivable has been given. Unrealized rent for this previous year means current previous year is given. Period when the property remain vacant, that is been given in the month of a number of a month. Be careful in the calculation. ये जो actual rent receivable है 350, is it annual figure? No. If it would have been annual, then it would have been given as an annual figure, but it is not an annual figure. Okay. So ये कितने months के लिए है actual rent receivable? You just look it out carefully, you'll come to know. The period when the property remains the vacant is 5 months. Do careful, this actual rent receivable is not for the per annum nahi hai. Okay, because the property is vacant for the 5 months. If the property is vacant for the 5 months, then this rent would be for receivable है ना. अगर 5 महीने प्रॉपर्टी को लेट आउट नहीं किया तो उसका रेंट रिसीवेबल होने वाला है नहीं. रिसीवेबल है मतलब ही क्या? दिस इज रेंट फॉर द 7 months. Okay, this is rent for the 9 months and this is rent for the 10 months. Because the properties remain vacant for this mini period and I taken a rent. This is not a per annum. This is a rent for the 7 months. This is a rent for the 9 months and this is a rent for the 10 months. Have you cleared it? Why this? Because the rent receivable is always for the period for which you let out the property. Correct. So I let out a property only for the 7 months. So I will receive the rent for the 7 months. So be careful on this part. This is not an actual rent for the 12 months. Next, how do you treat it out? What we do? Actual rent received में से what you minus? You do minus the receivable में से we minus the unrealized rent. So now this is the actual rent receivable है तो इसमें से हम unrealized rent को minus करेंगे. So unrealized month 10 months. This is somewhat not feasible because I let out the property for the 7 months and how can be the unrealized rent for the 10 months? I do agree with you. Sorry, very sorry. It's an amount 10, not the months. So it's correct. Actual rent is for the 7 month 350 है. Unrealized rent 10. So हम comparison में क्या लेते हैं? Unrealized rent एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीवेबल माइनस द अनरियलाइज रेंट. तो हमारे कंपेयर में आती है फिगर स्टेप 3 में 340. एग्रीड विद दिस. नाउ एक्चुअल रेंट इफ आई लेट आउट फॉर द थ्रू आउट द पीरियड लेट आउट फॉर अ ईयर, पूरे साल के लिए लेट आउट करता तो कितना रेंट आता? 350 डिवाइड बाय 7 मल्टीप्लाई बाय 12, करेक्ट. तो आई विल गेट हाउ मच आई कुड हैव एन रेंट फॉर एन ईयर. इट कम्स टू 600 माइनस 10, क्योंकि तभी भी तो 10 रुपये अनरियलाइज रहता ही, तो कितना एक्चुअल रेंट मिलता मेरे को? 590. अगर मैं पूरे साल भर के लिए लेट आउट करता तो कितना रेंट मिलता मेरे को? 590. How it calculated that? 350 is the rent receivable for the 7 months. If I would let out for the full year, so divide by 7, multiply by 12, I would have got a 600. But in that case also, I would not able to realize the unrealized rent of 10. So how much I could have realized? अगर vacancy loss नहीं होता, correct? तो कितना actual rent I would have received? 590. In the second case, 540 divide by, correct? 540 divide by 12, sorry, divide by 9, multiply by 12, correct? And then we'll add it out the unrealized, minus the unrealized, but unrealized rent कुछ है ही नहीं, so if figure comes to 720. अगर पूरे साल भर के लिए प्रॉपर्टी लेट आउट होती हाउस 2, तो कितना रेंट रिसीव होता? I would have received the 520, sorry 720. The third case, if this property would have been let out for the throughout the year, तो कितना रेंट रिसीव होता? 600 I received for the 10 months, तो 600 divide by 10 multiply by 12 minus, पूरे साल भर के लिए लेट आउट करते तो 750 मिलता रेंट, सॉरी 750 नहीं, 600 divide by 10 multiply by 12, तो it comes to 720. I would have received the 720, but I do have a अनरियलाइज रेंट ऑफ 150. पूरे साल के लिए अगर लेट आउट करती प्रॉपर्टी तो कितना रेंट मिलता? मल्टीप्लाई बाय 12. लेकिन इन दैट केस ऑल्सो मेरे को 150 का रेंट तो रिसीव ही नहीं होता, करेक्ट? तो माइनस द 150, तो इट कम्स टू 570. सो एक्चुअल रेंट रिसीव्ड, अगर मैंने पूरे साल के लिए प्रॉपर्टी लेट आउट की होती तो आई वुड हैव बीन रिसीव्ड दिस मच अमाउंट ऑफ रेंट. चलो स्टेप 1, what do we do? Compare the municipal values to be compared with the fair rent, whichever is higher, so it comes to 500. That is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower, so again it comes to 500. Let's step 2, and that is to be compared with the actual rent minus unrealized rent, correct? So how much is the actual rent? This is in a 350 minus the unrealized rent, that is a 10, so it comes to 340. So 340 or 500, whichever is higher, so the answer should be 500, correct? मतलब ही क्या? The reasonable expected rent is 500, actual rent minus the unrealized rent is a 340, whichever is a higher would become my गाँव. So in this case the 500 would become a गाँव. लेकिन ये आ गया ना उठ के AR, क्या बोलता है? अगर वैकेंसी नहीं होती, मैं थ्रू आउट पीरियड के लिए लेट आउट होता, तो आई वुड हैव बीन हायर. अच्छा, कितना रेंट आता इन दैट केस? 590. रियली ही वुड हैव बीन हायर. इफ यस, देन द एक्चुअल रेंट मीन्स 340 वुड बिकम अ गाँव. हाउ यू क्लियर विद दिस? द नेक्स्ट, द स्टेप 1 आंसर whichever is a higher, the step 2 whichever is lower, correct? Now the reasonable expected rent is a 720 and it is reasonable expected rent. How much is the actual rent? Actual rent is a 540. There is a no unrealized rent, so the 540. तो whoever is a higher would become a गाँव. तो कौन हाँ गाँव बनेगा? RER. लेकिन ये बोल रहे नहीं वैकेंसी नहीं होती तो, अच्छा वैकेंसी नहीं होती तो क्या होता? तो कितना रेंट आता? 720, करेक्ट? AR would be higher or equal to, है ना? तो AR क्या होता था? RER से इक्वल हो जाता. It means what would become a गाँव? Again the AR, that is a 540. अगर वैकेंसी नहीं होता तो if the actual rent is equal to RER or higher than the RER, then what would become a गाँव? Yes, then the actual rent would become a गाँव. So in this case the actual rent would become a गाँव. Are you clear with this? Next, last. For the house 3, the municipal value and the fair rent, दोनों same है. Whichever is higher, the step 1 answer would be 600. That is to be compared with the standard rent, correct? So it comes to 600, whichever is lower. That is to be compared with the actual rent. हाउ मच इज द एक्चुअल रेंट? एक्चुअल रेंट इज 600 बट अनरियलाइज रेंट माइनस करके कितना आता है फिगर? 600 minus 150, it comes to, this is a reasonable expected rent. And how much is the actual rent? The actual rent comes to 450. Whichever is a higher. तो कौन गांव बनेगा? एक्चुअल देखा तो 600 शुड बिकम अ गांव आर यार. लेकिन यार बोलता है वैकेंसी नहीं होती तो अच्छा ठीक है बाबा, वैकेंसी नहीं होती तो मेरा साल भर का रेंट 570 570 होता. स्टिल वैकेंसी ऐड करने के बाद भी you'd be lower than the reasonable expected rent. So what should become a गांव? आपको AR को गांव बनने का कोई चांस नहीं है. So whichever is higher. So in this case AR गांव नहीं बनेगा, क्योंकि अगर थ्रू आउट पीरियड के लिए भी लेट आउट होता तो भी वो कितना आता? सिर्फ 570. Have you got it? So in this case, the 600 should become a gaon. Have you clear with this? This is the last thing I wanted to discuss. Last question I want to discuss on this part. So we are under the calculation of the gaon. Just to do summarize what are the things we discussed under this. So gross annual value less the municipal taxes paid by the owner, correct? Then the next less you will get the now, that is the net annual value. Out of that you will get a 2 deduction, standard deduction at the rate of 30%, and the second interest on borrowed capital. Then you will get the income to be taxable under the HP. Now in the calculation of the gaon, what are the 3 steps are involved? What is the first step? The step 1, the standard rent is to be, fair rent is to be compared with the municipal value, whichever is higher. The answer of the step 1 is to be compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. That is to be called reasonable expected rent, and that is to be compared with the actual rent received or receivable, whichever is higher. हमने देखा कब म्यूनिसिपल वैल्यू, फेयर रेंट एंड स्टैंडर्ड रेंट पार्ट ऑफ द ईयर के लिए लेना होता है. कब लेना होता है पार्ट ऑफ द ईयर के लिए? हाँ, करेक्ट. If you are the owner for the part of the year or the building is for the part of the, otherwise that figure always to be taken annual. Next, unrealized rent को क्या करना है? Actual rent receivable में से unrealized rent को minus करना है. Good. Vacancy loss को क्या करना है? अगर due to the vacancy loss, if the AR is lower, correct, then than the reasonable expected rent, then the AR should become a gaon. The AR should equivalent with the gaon. So AR plus vacancy loss, if it is more than or equal to the reasonable expected rent, correct, then the AR should be equivalent with the gaon.